If you've got a question, the voices of resin are here. Oh, PlastChicks.
PlastChicks is an SPE-sponsored podcast.
Well, yes, it is. And here we are at an SPE event.
Let's go.
This
At
is
Antec
yeah,
2024
yeah,
in St. Louis.
which, well, by the time you hear this, will be several months later. It
That's
might
okay.
be even after.
It'll be a distant memory, and we'll be getting ready for Antec 2025 in Philadelphia.
And if you are listening to this, there's also video available on 4SPE's YouTube channel.
That's exciting. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that there is actually no one sitting next.
No one's sitting in the middle, right? Where's
Sitting.
our guest? We decided to take advantage
What's
of this
happening?
today instead of ignoring the person who's in the middle. But anyway, I'm Mercedes Landazuri.
And I'm Lynzie Nebel.
And with our powers combined, we are PlastChicks, the voices of resin.
And today we have probably one of our most enthusiastic plastic friends. We love the energy, and we need the energy.
We need the energy.
Because this is our last recording for the week, and we kind of saved him for the last because we need it.
Yeah.
This is the vibe we're going for.
Yeah,
right
he
now.
brings the energy, he brings the vibe. And shall we walk him out?
So let's introduce Jay Shoemaker, Adjunct Professor at Western Michigan and owner of HL&S Consulting.
Peter!
Two favorite friends. See, this is the energy.
Yeah.
We're very glad that
You're about to fall asleep.
Okay.
It's
Well,
not
you
even
know,
10 a.m.
if
yet.
you want to know, just look at the slap of the back of the head.
Always welcome. So, Jay, thanks so much for coming on the pod. You know, you had written us an email. I think we met you did we meet you at iMFLUX when we went there?
No,
No.
I was very upset that I couldn't come down.
Did
I
they
had,
not let you come out?
well, there is that. But I think I had commitments that
Oh, because it was during COVID.
or I
too.
should
It
be
was like-
committed, had commitment, should be
All the
committed.
same thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, very different, but you know,
Yeah.
I escaped from the mental institution. So I couldn't come down and meet you.
But then you wrote us that great email that
Yeah.
just made our day,
Oh.
made our month.
Yes.
Here.
So I met you last year at,
Yes, at
Antec.
Antec in Denver.
yep, and then in September is when I wrote the email.
Yeah. So that email, it was so sweet. It you had listened to the episode that we did with Kate Davenport of Eureka
Which
Recycling.
is a classic episode.
And you gave it as an extra credit project, I believe,
Yeah.
in your class at Western
Mhm.
Michigan University.
Yeah. So it's just kind of crazy. I needed to stay home, mow lawn, listen to podcasts, and it blew me away because I don't know that much about that subject. And 3 hours later, I was given a lecture on that subject.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
I
good
was,
timing.
could not have been better timing. So I go in and gush to my class about this podcast. And I said, how can I use this? And since I was, end of the semester, I couldn't just add it as an assignment. So I added it as extra credit. And one person did it, an international student from Africa. He got so pumped about it. When he graduates and goes home, he wants to do something in plastics recycling.
Wow.
It is incredible. And sadly, I haven't been able to work with him since that. He's doing his senior project right now. And I wanted to hook him up with a MRF in, it's not really a MRF, but it's a industrial recycling facility in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we couldn't make the connection in time. But he's definitely excited, and hopefully he'll be able to do something.
That's so amazing. And now as I understand, we are required material for your course?
Yes, this
Hey.
semester.
We can't stop doing this.
That's right. And the sad thing is I screwed up on due dates. If the due dates were correct, they would have already been in and graded, and I could provide more feedback. But
Here's the important question. Is your episode going to be the required one for next semester?
I don't want to scare them. So they get enough of my shenanigans anyway, having it on the YouTube video or the other avenues of listening.
Right.
Okay, that's fair.
Your assignment is to listen to me more.
No, we don't want to scare them away. We
Okay.
want to draw them in. To the
What
wonderful
else
world
is
of
out
plastics.
there in the industry?
Yeah.
So Jay, I know you worked in the industry for many years. You have 25 publications, but all this time and 11 awards, I think, as well. And we'll get to that. But all this time that you've worked in industry, you have also taught or been engaged with Western Michigan University somehow.
Yeah. So you know, the joke is some people peak in high school. I peaked in college. And
And you're still there.
and I'm still there. I'm still trying. Yeah. So as a sophomore, I met this phenomenal guy, Paul Engelman. He got interested. Well, he was an industrial education major, and he and I connected on a lot of levels. And he ended up being recruited by the faculty to start teaching plastics classes. And so as an undergrad or as a graduate student, he started teaching, we'll call it Plastics 101 at Western. And then he was tasked to develop the rest of the plastics curriculum. And so as he graduated with his master's and started working on his doctorate, and somewhere along those lines, I started working for Moldflow. We just were partners in crime in doing stuff. And so when he developed the tooling class, I helped him and I did the Moldflow stuff and he did everything else. And I think that was 85. And I've been helping out ever since. And initially it was very informal. And I don't know, somewhere we'll say early mid-90s, I became an official adjunct and haven't looked back.
Well, and I really love that because, you know, you got your start in the industry like long before most people get their start in the industry.
Yes.
And now you are taking that like super experience and passing that on, which is rarer than you would think.
Yeah. So early on is an understatement. I joke it's 9. I was 9 when I officially got sucked in. And how that happened was my parents owned a tool shop, a job shop, and he did some work for tool makers in the area. Not much, but he did some. And as part of that, I think we are delivering parts to a company called WL Molding, who I think was established in 1948. So they were very early.
They saw the trend.
Yeah, they saw the trend. And because I was with my dad, we'll call myself 12. I don't really remember how old. You know, we got a tour of the facility, and I so distinctly remember seeing that first molding machine. They were molding nylon ball valves for fire hoses, the fire nozzles.
Oh, very cool.
And they had undercuts, so they had the horn pins, and I was so fascinated with the horn pins going into the slides to form the action. It just captured my imagination. They also did some thermosets with compression and transfer, so I saw that, and I was just captivated.
Who could blame you?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's and then I went to school with a manufacturing major specializing in metalworking, because that's what my dad did. But I got interested in the plastics classes, and I ended up building 2 tools for Western while I was, let's see, one was an undergraduate. The other one I had graduated, but took a semester, took some graduate classes to keep myself occupied while I was looking for a job, and I built a second mold.
And see, I feel like there's not that practicality. I think any school that graduates plastic students across the country would say, like, where do we lack the most? It's in the tool building. It's in the understanding of the actual like modification of the materials. And so, okay, Deb. So I think one of the things that schools across the country, you know, when they're looking for plastic students, one of the things I think all industry people say is the practicality of knowing the actual tool, like the metal manufacturing, is a skill that is not as developed as it could be. So like someone like you who already has that understanding, yeah, you got the leg up. Did you kick all their butts in school? Like you were knowledge wise, like you were ahead of the game for sure.
So not fair. So not fair.
Yeah, I would have been.
Yeah.
But,
oh my God. You know what this reminds me of? Like it's upsetting me right now. When I took Japanese in college, and there was this guy who was bilingual English and Mandarin. And sorry, I don't know why I'm going on this tangent, but yeah. So he already knew all the kanji. He knew what, because there's 2 syllabaries and then there's a kanji, and it was like not fair.
Yeah.
And that's what you were,
not
right?
fair.
Well, true, but to be fair, I had probably about 5 to 7 years working in a machine shop before I stepped in my first college class. But because turns out I had a passion for teaching, right? I always helped my classmates with stuff. So it wasn't like I was, thrown in the dust and so forth.
Oh, so you were a kind knowledge sharer.
Yeah, I tried to be.
You started teaching there when you were a student.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So let's back this up.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. Unofficially and officially. So one semester it was a sort of a 200 level machining class. I had done it, and but the next,
it's really triggering for me. Really triggering.
So a year or whatever later, I don't even think I was paid, but I'd always help in that class, and there was a particular very attractive student that I was helping. And so sometimes I would take him to my dad's machine shop and we'd do extra stuff. And so this particular project.
Wait. Safe for work stuff.
Oh, yes. Instead of filing to create a finish. That was intentional, by the way. So instead of filing to get a surface finish, we surface ground it. And so when this person got their grade, it was actually higher than mine a year before, and the professor was teasing me because he knew I helped the student, because he knew I had the skills and the means and opportunity. And
it was very obvious where that extra knowledge was coming from.
Exactly. And so he teased me that she got a better grade, and I said, yeah, I'm good with that.
It's okay. And honestly, she just took the knowledge and ran with it. So that's what we want everyone to do. And that's a sign of a really good instructor.
I tried, or I'm trying, something like that.
So let's talk about some of your awards. You won quite a few. Let me look here. We've got, why don't you tell us? I know you won, didn't you win like mold maker of the year? And
mold designer of the year. That was a total shock. I've been on was mold making, mold design division then, now it's mold technologies division. I've been a member of that since '83, but I was never on the board. I'd done some papers at Antec in that division. This is my 35th Antec or something.
You have been coming to Antec since 1985.
Yes, I've missed a couple of years, but yeah.
How dare you?
Well, COVID.
We'll give you.
So anyway, I was very well known on the board, and it just sort of popped up, I guess, because of my work with Moldflow and.
You wrote the book on Moldflow.
I wrote a book on it.
a book. It's
Yes,
one,
it is apparently very popular. And what I find just so crazy, very interesting, is published by Hanser, the Moldflow Design Guide, but Moldflow kept the copyright. It doesn't belong to Hanser. Now it's Autodesk's copyright. And the reason for that is a lot of the material was used in training material that I had written and other documents. And so I think the thing was that Hanser has rights for it in English and we could do anything else. And some of Autodesk's folks in China trying to develop Moldflow usage over there had it translated into simplified Chinese.
Well, I was going to say, if you need help with that translation, you can talk to Enrico Way. His Japanese is also quite good at it. He's kept it up as much as I have, but
so that was published over there, and it was in a black and white in a paperback, but I think it was given away. And so a lot of Moldflow users in China know me from that. And then when they would do their certification tests and I would grade it, you know, we'd have some interaction. And I was in China now probably about 10 years ago. And yeah, the reception I got was overwhelming and humbling.
really,
Because of that. And
you're Moldflow famous. You're Moldflow famous.
I am for good or bad Moldflow famous.
So tell us about how you got your job with Moldflow, because you are, I mean, you are, I'm going to say it, you're probably going to say something like, oh, it's not just me, but you are the Moldflow expert, in my opinion.
Bribery goes a long way. So SPE, that's the simple answer of it. So when I was probably a junior in college, there was a very well-established plastics program at Grand Rapids Junior College, then it's Grand Rapids Community College now. The professor there, Chuck Carlson, invited a professor from Western. And at the time, this professor was sort of taking over plastics classes, but with no real background. He's sort of babysitting the position. That professor from Western, Phil Bruce, he invited me. We went up to our first SPE meeting, and the speaker was Colin Austin, the founder of Moldflow. He was up from Australia. I didn't know it at the time, but the Midwest office was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, 5 miles or 3 miles from campus. And yeah, I didn't know, but they were up and this was absolutely fascinating. You know, this is in '83, so PCs weren't quite a thing yet. But using computers to solve these complex engineering problems were just fascinating. And about 6 months later, there was, SPE doesn't do them anymore, I don't think. They're called RETACs, Regional Technical Conferences.
Yeah, after
the name has
SPE,
changed.
just I have to say,
I knew
because I just have to say, because it's all a very confusing name, because yes, Regional Technical Conference, but after they retired that name, my division, my primary division, Color and Appearance division, actually bought that name. So now there is a RETEC every year. It's an amazing event, but it makes no sense. It's like CAD RETEC, but it's not about CAD, and it's not a Regional Technical Conference. It's Color and Appearance division annual tech.
Yeah. So anyway, this time it was Phil Bruce, my friend Paul Engelman, and I went up for the RETEC. Colin was speaking again there. My friend Paul got the business card from the local guy, Bob Schaefer, and they were looking to hire somebody. And, you know, they reached out to placement services at Western. I had an in at placement services. I learned about the position before it was public.
Always a good in.
Yeah, always a good in. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And in the day, we have long cover letters that went in with your paper resume. No such thing as emailing it in yet. And so I had strong contacts with Moldflow before that interview. And I had actually spent a morning in the Moldflow office before that job posting too. So I had 3 contacts with Moldflow.
Through SPE. I have to imagine though, like, and maybe I'm wrong, so you can correct me or, you know, whatever you're gonna do here, but I have to imagine like going to work for a place like Moldflow at the time has to be the like technological equivalent of what we're seeing now with like AI, where you're just like, I don't know how this is gonna work, but it seems really cool and like it's gonna make our lives easier.
It was interesting. I had 3 first interviews with 3 companies, and then the same week, second interviews, and Moldflow's was the second of the 3. That was the job I want. I had a job offer from the first company I had the second interview with, and I walked in. If they offered me $1 a year, I would take it on the spot. Wow. And I told them that I had a job offer and what the salary was. They bumped it up $1,000 and said, "Yep, when do I start?"
Wow, $1,000, which in today's money.
Yeah, it was about like 4 or 5 grand. I actually did.
Inflation is a problem.
So I mean, so many things I wanted to touch on there, but like, you know, we're talking about the fact that it's who you know, and it's not meant in like a, you know, my daddy owned this shop, so he gave me. It's not the nepotism. It's who you know. It's the going out and making contact.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
what you're interested in and talking to people.
And when you meet people, you're obviously so curious and so energetic. It's like, you know, it's people see it. People see your energy, they feel it, and they're like, oh, this guy.
Like this guy's gonna drive this over the finish line.
Yeah.
To the mental institution or something else, but you know, that's awesome.
You know what? I'm Deb.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely owe my career to SPE and that kind of chain of events. But Paul and I also, you know, in early on said we're going to go to every Antec, and our first one was 85 in Atlanta, no, DC. The next one is LA. We couldn't afford to do that, but then Atlanta was 87, and from there on out, we had a streak.
I think that's really great, and I think, like, you know, you talk about the fact that you've been pretty much teaching at Western Michigan or in some form since you're 12. We're putting it on your official record. It's since you were 12, and you know, I think having people like you at events like this really drive home the point of what we hope for is someone engaged in the industry, interested in the industry, interested in, you know, creating those connections and helping that knowledge to like be passed on. And I love seeing you at any event, because it's like, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be chaotic and I'm going to need 4 naps, but it's also going to be a very good day.
You're a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So Jay, you then continued on with Moldflow or Autodesk Moldflow, right, until 2020, is that correct?
That's correct.
And during that time, you published a lot of those publications. One I saw was titled Battle Royale, a 2-part series.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that.
So I can't take credit for the names.
I would have given you full credit. I would have assumed that was just you.
Co-author in one of those.
So there was Tim Van Est was the co-author on a lot of those. So Tim and I became friends when he was a customer. And he was taking his certification exams, and so we got to know each other. He switched jobs, we continued, and it was in that job up in Grand Rapids that he said, hey, we ought to do something together. at Autodesk University. That's where that battle royale was. And it was essentially several very expert Moldflow users were given the same problem and set of objectives and say, okay, analyze it.
And then fight to the death.
And fight to the death. And then, so Tim and I were sort of Tim was a judge. I was one of the folks actually doing the problem. And then we had several of our other Moldflow friends do it. And at Autodesk University, we all talked about our experience of working on this problem, and it was a way to kind of talk to the user base that we all bring our own experiences and expertise and how we solve the problem. We came up with different solutions, but they all worked, and yeah, it was a fun thing. And I think there was a series of 2, and I don't honestly remember what we did on both of them, but Tim and I co-authored or co-presented several times at AU because it was so much fun.
I hope that you like actually squared off in these presentations or battle royale. I like that you have to pause and think about it. It's a maybe.
Or at least maybe some theme music like
we definitely had theme music. And the Moldflow community is a very tight-knit community. And so I've had as a question slide for 25 years. And PowerPoint used to have clip art.
Oh yeah.
Right? You remember the clip art. And so I can't take credit for making this either. Kurt Hayden, a student at Western, did. But he had like a crowd in the background. And then in the foreground, there's this guy under a skylight being interviewed by some guy. And so we would paste various heads on
Interview like
whoever.
FBI, for those who listening and not seeing that interrogation
Yeah,
style.
very interrogation style. And I think in one of those battle royals, an Autodesk friend of mine, Jeff Higgins, he was the one being interrogated, even though he was not being part of this. And I think I was pointing down.
You were the interrogator?
Yeah, I was the interrogator. And we had another customer, George Thompson, involved in this somehow. I don't remember, but you know, everybody's fair game.
You know what? And I think that's what sometimes some of these presentations are fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excitement. So yes, we're doing cool stuff. We're doing it because we're passionate about it, because we're interested in it. Why wouldn't that be at least a little fun?
Yeah.
At least a little fun.
You know, when in doubt, entertain. That's my motto. And yeah, try to make it fun and lively, and it helps to have a sense of humor when you do a presentation and there's no questions. That happened to me in Frankfurt in June. The audience knows me pretty well. I was the very last speaker of the event, and no questions because everyone wants to go home, right?
Right.
So no questions. Did you have fun? Yes. Did you learn something? Yes.
At least your job is done.
Exactly.
So after you left Moldflow, you went over to iMFLUX, and you were doing some really cool stuff because of all the low pressure. And so that was like what kind of challenge was that to go from like traditional Moldflow to the iMFLUX stuff? Yeah,
so I was brought on board to really figure out how to simulate iMFLUX. And so iMFLUX, before I started, had already developed a relationship with Moldex, which I really never directly worked with them. I talked with them a lot, but I wasn't driving that development. Since I was a Moldflow expert, I was trying to figure out what's the best way to simulate this within Moldflow, and then can the philosophy and and ways I did it in Moldflow transfer to other simulation tools? Short answer is yes. But you know, anyone who's looked at iMFLUX and tried to figure out what it is, it's a mind bender, because we've all learned injection molding where we fill the part by velocity, have a switch over, and then pressure. And here with iMFLUX, we're doing everything with pressure, and it, like I said, it's a mind bender. And so I spent 6 months trying to figure out how to get my brain to work right, thinking about iMFLUX. That finally happened. But then simulation done right, you do it before the part's molded. And so there's some key information you don't really know, so you have to make some assumptions. And so I'm playing around with these assumptions. Are they reasonable or not? And then finally I documented it and made a training session to kind of go from, okay, if you already know Moldflow, how do you do it in, how do you simulate iMFLUX? And I tried to write it where if you didn't have Moldflow, you use Moldex or something else, you could still take the same ideas and apply it in the software you have.
Now, if our listeners, anybody listening is not familiar with iMFLUX, they have this relationship with Procter & Gamble, and that's why I'm specifically mentioning it, because in 2023, you were issued the CEO award.
Yes.
From Procter & Gamble.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the, congratulations.
Just a little award. Just a little one.
Yeah, I only found that out this morning.
Well,
I'm finding it out in real time.
You're not braggarts at all. You're excited, but you're not.
More bragging.
So what was that? What was that like? Well, how did it
very weird, because as if you know anything about iMFLUX ceased as an organization on June 30 last year, which was a Friday. That Wednesday was when I was in Germany doing that presentation that I sort of referenced earlier, and the CEO award was announced when I was in Frankfurt. I wasn't told about it.
Oh,
And yeah, so I went from Frankfurt, flew in and out of Detroit, but I didn't drive home. I drove down to Cincinnati for the last day, turning in my stuff and things. And I got a message from your friend, Toy Jones.
Oh, I love Toy Jones.
Congratulating me. And I had no idea what she's talking about.
Congratulations, you came back.
and so I'm down there and I'm not really thinking much about it. And a couple other people said something about it. And I finally went up, I think it was Mary, our CEO, and said, "Can you explain this to me?" and so I kind of learned about the CEO award and let's see. I got a certificate and a couple other things. I think those were mailed to me after the fact, but it was sort of a parting gesture. Hey, you did good work. And
well, it's a CEO award from Procter & Gamble. I think you did really good work.
I hope so.
Good work.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
And so now, you're doing the teaching at Western Michigan, but you also have a consulting business because, again, you are the Moldflow expert, in my opinion. So you have HL&S Consulting. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure.
What kind of business turn away? What kind of riffraff comes in? What kind of riffraff goes out?
Well, anyway, I started it because I didn't exactly want to retire when the iMFLUX gig left. I always had my WMU job, but I wanted to do something. I just can't leave Moldflow. So I started up this business. The primary thing was to support existing and new iMFLUX customers on the simulation part. I'd spent a lot of time figuring out how to do it, and I wanted it to continue. That was the motivation for it. To be honest, I've got a slow start, but I had some jobs, and they've one was pretty straightforward, and the one I'm working on now, yeah, it's making me work, and it's a ton of fun.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so you know, I'm passionate about that, but quite frankly, it's the stuff I do at Western that floats my boat mostly right now.
Well, and I think it's very appreciated by the community in Western Michigan because, like we said, you know, we've made reference to the fact that there aren't that many, number one, schools teaching plastics in the industry. We are in high demand of having students being graduated. And then you're also in high demand of having them have a good education.
Right.
Because if you only have so many schools, they need to be pretty good when they come out.
Yeah.
So we really like appreciate your commitment to the industry and commitment to students. And like, obviously your energy is just ridiculously infectious. And that's why we love you. And we really appreciate you coming on the show today because like this was a must-do interview for both of us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
And for any of our listeners who might want to get in touch with you for your consulting, how can they do that?
HL&S Consulting, Jay Shoemaker. How about I read my card because I don't remember.
We can also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do it in the show notes. Jay.Shoemaker, Shoemakr.
Actual Shoemaker.
English spelling, not the original German. HLS Consulting LLC.com.
Wonderful.
What a mouthful. Let me tell you, when I was hunting down that domain, I had some heartburn trying to figure out how to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Jay. That is
My pleasure. It's the highlight of my last hour.
Yeah.